Hej alle sammen. Er jeg den der lidt irriterende type, hvis jeg beder jer om at rykke lidt sammen? Eller vil I bare gerne lige sidde og zoome lidt ud helt alene, eller hvordan overledes? Det er bare, jeg tænker, at når man står heroppe og skal holde et oplæg, så er det altså meget rart, at der er lidt samling på jer. Kunne I være friske på det? Hvor er I gode? Fremragende. Tak. Internationale indspil og idéer til branding af idræt. Det er Sport England, der kommer og holder et oplæg. Jeg tænker, I måske har hørt fra dem, eller bemærket dem, enten i går eller i dag. Det er en statslig organisation i England, der arbejder for at få flere til at være aktive. De har lavet nogle kampagner med en ret så stærk identitet, som har været en stor succes. Og det er faktisk også det, vi skal forsøge at blive lidt klogere på i løbet af den næste session. Kate Dale, hun vil komme herop og tale, men den første, I skal byde velkommen til, det er give a warm welcome to Phil Smith.
Thank you, Tina, and thank you to everyone for joining us in this session. This is a very big room for a small number of people. I am going to pretend this is a massive crowd of full, enthusiastic people. Thank you, my friend, well done. And you are going to pretend that I am talking to a massive crowd of full, interested people. We've got, I know this is the last session of the conference, so we're going to try and make it good for you as a reward for joining us this afternoon. Thank you again for your patience with me speaking in English and not Danish. I'm grateful. My colleague Kate is going to give you some excitement in a few minutes because she's going to talk about the campaigns that we're running in England. She's going to show you a few exciting, inspirational clips of the things that we've been doing, and I hope it works for you as it has done for the population in England. I am going to start this session by telling you what I think is something interesting about what is going on in sport in my country. And perhaps you can use it to compare with Denmark. You can think about the trends that are happening in a country which is just over that way. A small place, but a very packed place. A population of about 60 million people in a small country, which is England. So, I am talking about England. For those who don't know, the United Kingdom is England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, but we are from Sport England. So I'm just talking about the biggest of the four countries. So, a reminder, on this stage yesterday, I was trying to get people to celebrate. We've got the highest number of people ever taking part in England. You've already done it, you don't need to do it again. But let's look at what's going on underneath some of the headlines. Well, for a start, the total number of people is increasing, and we're very pleased about that, but it means that we have to still work on those who are not taking part. A reminder that this data comes from the largest survey of its kind, we think, in Europe at least. This is independently collected, this is independently evaluated, this is not me and my colleagues telling me and my colleagues that we're doing a great job. This is independent and robust. Again, I will show you the link at the end if you are interested in statistics and you want to look at the detail and compare it to individual municipalities or sports that you're excited by, then you can do all of that. The data tables are underneath for those who want the data. So, let's look at a couple of things that are happening in the data. Firstly, volunteering. Well, in England at least, sport and activity absolutely relies on volunteers. Over 10 million people in England give their time for free at least once every 2 weeks. And before the COVID period, you can see there was a worrying trend going down of the number of people who felt able to give that time. And since COVID, we've bounced back. We've not quite bounced back to the full total or the same level, and this is a problem. Our solution is two things. One is data and digital. The experience of being a volunteer is very old-fashioned and analog in England, and we need to make it more like booking a cinema ticket or any of the other things that you can now do on your phone. More simple, more digital, more immediately obvious how things can work for volunteers. The second thing we need to do is make the experience of the volunteer just as important and fun and interesting as the participant. Sometimes we forget about the person at the front doing the coaching or the leadership, and they're just as important too. What else? Something here about mental health. There's a lot of numbers and charts here, but the fundamental point is that mental well-being continues to show us why physical activity matters. The charts on the left show a very positive relationship between mental well-being and how active somebody is. So while we can't prove the exact causality between physical activity and mental well-being, we can show that there is a direct correlation. So it's pretty likely that the more activity that you do, the better that you will feel. I know in this room we all think this is quite obvious, but we need to be able to prove this to people who are more skeptical, who give out the money, and frankly, the people who set the policy. So that is what we're trying to do. We find a similar trend here with volunteering. So on the right, how satisfied are you with your life and how happy did you feel yesterday? The answers to these questions go up and therefore more happy with people who spend time volunteering. So this is not just a selfless act where you give time to your community, you're doing something for yourself, and that is okay. And that is part of our marketing and encouragement for people too. You can help yourself as well as helping your community. Let's look for interest at some of the individual sports and activities in England and what's going on. Let's start with swimming. Forgive me, I don't know the data for Denmark, but you will have some idea of how popular swimming is and what is happening in the last few years. But outdoor swimming has seen some increases, not just me and Kate in the fjord, but back in England, people are doing it increasingly. It's becoming more popular. The future outlook for swimming, however, at the moment in England is not looking good. The number of municipal pools, public facilities, is going down because they're very expensive to maintain. You know this, especially expensive to heat with the cost of energy. So more and more local authorities in England are deciding they don't want to run their swimming pool anymore. And of course, if there is no water to swim in, this chart will only go one way. So we have to keep protecting those facilities. This is a political job for Sport England to do, and we're working hard on it. What about team sports? My favourite. You can see that we had a really worrying trend before COVID, the dip in the middle, where team sports seemed to be struggling. This is adults, by the way. The number or proportion of people playing team sports was really struggling. And actually, this is one of the results I think we are most proud of, that since the COVID period, working with partners in football and rugby and cricket and basketball, I'll show you the sports in a minute, those team sports are bouncing back. Let's see. Let's look at the popularity of different sports. I thought this might be interesting for you compared to Denmark. And of course, the difference in gender. What men are doing, what women are doing. You can see that for men, football absolutely dominates the picture. Even though the women's England team is much better than the men, this could be our year for the men. No? I know you don't care. Okay. We think it could be our year, this year. But it's been the year for the women a couple of times recently, and we're very proud of that. But for men, certainly, the playing of grassroots local football absolutely dominates, even though, of course, there is a whole range of sports that men continue to play. Interesting competition in England between the women of football and netball. I know that netball is not a big deal in Denmark, but it's a game that attracts many girls and women in England. The trend for netball tends to be quite flat, but guess what is happening with women and girls football? Because the Lionesses have won twice, and because there is a great infrastructure now for women's football. The popularity is starting to grow. So this is a match of supply and demand. When the women's England team shows that women can be fantastic at football and give some inspiration, we also need the pitches, the coaches, the infrastructure for it to work. And thankfully, the Football Association in England is doing just that, as I heard on this stage from your friend at the Danish Football Union yesterday. Similar story. So fitness, here's some interesting pictures here. What is happening in fitness? Well, you can see an obvious trend in fitness activities. And if I show you the next part, what exact fitness activities we're talking about, this is quite interesting. When we look at the fitness activity types, we can see that the post-pandemic increase is consistent across most of the fitness activity, different styles of fitness. More adults are doing fitness classes, doing gym, exercise machines. When it comes to exercise machines, almost all the types of machine are up, but the growth is being driven by the treadmill, the running machine. Interesting. Even though in the same facility there are lots of different types of machine, it is the indoor running that is making the difference, in England at least. So we've seen it increase across all the types. There is one type of fitness class, which is the end one, generic fitness training. One type of fitness class that is now dominating all the growth in England. Does anybody want to have a guess? What kind of class of fitness are we talking about? Come on, give me a shout. Morton, help me. High rocks is a good shout, but it's not right. Excuse me? Pilates, indeed. There we go. So in England at the moment, for all types of people, and even though it's been typically marketed to women, there appear to be more men joining classes than ever before. Overall, this is a really positive story for Pilates and for fitness. And these are headlines taken from English newspapers that will give you an idea. It also shows that if you've got Harry Styles and David Beckham doing your marketing, you can't lose. In England, anyway. So, final thing from me. A shift in the activities that young adults are doing. It appears that while the total of young adults remains about flat, the proportion of people doing something, what they are doing is changing quite dramatically in the last, 4 or 5 years. And you can see for yourself what is making the difference. So we don't quite understand the dip in walking for leisure, except that, of course, walking was much more possible during the COVID period than lots of other things. So that explains some of that drop. But we can certainly see a really interesting growth in fitness activities and running. And again, there may be reasons why these are global reasons, or these are European reasons, or these are England reasons. I suspect it's a combination of all of these things. But running in particular is on the rise. Running is what has driven the upward trend in quite a lot of this age group. So I am going to hand you over to Kate, who's going to talk about how we've achieved some of this. Again, if you want some of the data underneath, or you want to understand more about life in England, that is all yours. And I'm over to Kate. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. In England on the last day of school, we play videos, so I thought that would be good today. So hopefully this will help this pass by a bit quicker.
Me again. Allow me to pick up where I left off.
Right, let's go, Mum.
The biggest phenomenon, and I Picasso with the pen. Just wanna talk that stuff till I hit him with the realness. Figure I should say something, but you don't wanna hear me vent. 2, 3. You can talk bad all day long, I will never be impressed. Don't know what I did to make you feel that you be earning my respect. I follow the white rabbit, got a couple carrots, I know that I got bad habits. Trying to find a balance, I'm in the store like I wanna have it, I gotta have it. You are not the toughest or baddest, my pen is the maddest. I'm probably any caboose and it's never right about this. May as well get a birthday cake and it ain't even my birthday. Cause when I switch, then they wanna say that I'm a...
You're not listening, you're not listening. I said it with my chest and I don't care who I offend.
So that was the fourth film in This Girl Can. We launched that in January 2020, expecting a whole year of amazing activity that obviously we had to stop in March, but then we adapted it and we used actually all the assets in the campaign to support women and help them get active during the pandemic. That's quite typical, I guess, of all of our films in that it's authentic, it's real people doing what they normally do. We look for the particular issues that we want to bring to life. So in that one, we showed breastfeeding, we detailed very deliberately menstruation because we knew that was a real barrier, particularly for young women and girls getting active, and we wanted to just normalise it because it is normal. And that's what we did. There are 3 campaigns, you'll have heard some of this over the last 2 days, that Sport England has specifically done. This Girl Can, We Are Undefeatable and Play Their Way. They all have different objectives, they all have different audiences, but they're part of the whole infrastructure or the whole ecosystem that Sport England is creating to support women, girls, men, boys to get active in different ways. This Girl Can on narrowing the gender gap between men and women, We're Undefeatable, targeting people with long-term health conditions, and Play Their Way, helping coaches and boosting coaches to really position child-first coaching at the heart of what they do so that more children have fun while they're doing it and are more likely to stay active now, but also as they get older. The campaigns have had fantastic impact. We're really proud of the numbers, and there's just some of them here. This Girl Can, over 4 million women to get active. We're Undefeatable prompted 1.7 million people with long-term health conditions and Play Their Way has encouraged 89% of coaches to reflect on their practice and start to implement changes. Really pleased, really excited for what they've done, but it really is just the beginning. And I guess what I want to delve into a bit more now is just some of the strands that I've picked up in the last few days of the how we did it. I can, and Phil will testify to this, talk for hours on this. I am not going to do that. I appreciate this is the last day and the last session. If there's anything we want to know more of that I don't cover, then please feel free to contact me, LinkedIn, whatever, and I'm happy to go into more details on the specific strands. One of the most important things is, now, you may not remember this film, I don't know if it was big in Denmark, but 1989, Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. They won't. It's really sad, they won't. It's not enough for us to deliver sport and physical activity, to build facilities, to create opportunities to open clubs, or publish information and expect the people we're trying to reach to find it if they're not already engaged. And that is, I guess, the underpinning principle of all the work that we're doing with our campaigns. We have to go out to where the audiences are and find them. And that's why paid media is so important. It's probably the most contentious, controversial, might be overstating it a bit, but it's the bit we have to prove quite rightly with public money. Why are you spending it on marketing? Why are you spending it on advertising? Why don't you just give it to the clubs, give it to the community organisations, give it to the leisure centres? We need to do that too. But because they won't come if we don't target them, we need paid media, and we wrap our women or our children or the coaches or any of the audiences we're trying to reach in paid media. So you will see messages repeated on TV, out of home, on posters, on social media, on digital media. Increasingly, we're using influencers and content creators, so you're getting it from trusted voices within your community. It takes, our research shows, about 7 or 8 times to hear a message before it really starts to get through. And you need to hear that message from different voices, and you need to hear that message from voices you trust, which will vary depending on the groups that you're trying to reach. This chart shows the importance of it with This Girl Can, actually, of the role of paid media is, if we're not even maintaining awareness of This Girl Can in this instance, if we're not even making sure that people know it exists and are aware of it, we can't speak to them. Paid media, even before we start to pull women into action, is really important in making sure that we actually have those channels that we can communicate them with directly. And that's why we invest. I mean, it will have been around 30 million over the last 11 years just through This Girl Can in paid media alone. And we have to do lots of research, and in fact you would expect us to. It's public money. National lottery players have funded this. We have to demonstrate that every penny of that is well spent. And so you will see a campaign message. This is when we're undefeatable, when you're out and about, and then you might go home and you might see it on your TV Let's see if this one works. This is coming from YouTube. I'm a bit nervous about this. It may not work. No? Right, okay. I can send the links afterwards. It's great. But the campaigns itself and the creative, and we have fabulous creative, and I really love it, and I'll come back to how we did it in a bit. But that is only part of the battle. We also have to change the system, and the two work together hand in hand. This is about behaviour change for people, but also behaviour change for the systems. So establishing, and the campaigns can really help with that shared purpose, that vision, that mission, eradicating the gender gap, helping more people with a lot of health conditions get active, transforming the way coaching is done in this country by putting children's rights at the heart of it. It can really establish, when you sell that emotionally and truly driven by insight, that shared purpose. Not thinking that we can do it all ourselves. We need to work with the sector, we need to work with them, and we don't need to tell them off. I think in the early days of This Girl Can, we probably did, if I'm honest. I could do a whole session on the mistakes we made, maybe next year. But that really distributed leadership and learning from the sector as much as telling them is absolutely critical. Starting with questions. You never rush into this work thinking that you know what to do. Understand, define the problem, and use that to start asking questions about what can and can't change. I will not go through all of these. But really understanding the system that you're trying to change. And actually, behaviour change for the system is not that different to behaviour change for a particular audience. You start with where they are, literally, metaphorically, emotionally. What are they going to do? What are their motivations? If we're talking to coaches, I need to understand what prompts people to go into coach. A lot of the times because someone needs to coach their kids' football team, and they start that way. If I come rushing in who knows nothing about coaching, not that much about sport before I started at Sport England, to be honest, I start telling them what to do, it is not going to work. Understand their motivation and what drives them, and connect your message to them. It's as important for the sector as it is for the audiences you're ultimately trying to reach and support. We recognise from the insight, and this is from This Girl Can, but I think this goes to any excluded or underrepresented audience. There's a real exclusion loop that just repeats and repeats and reinforces itself. So there are groups who, especially in areas of inequality, they feel excluded by society. Sport isn't for them, physical activity is for them. People like them don't go swimming, or it's just they don't feel at home or they don't feel comfortable then. So you take yourself out of that. It's natural to take ourselves out of any environment where we don't feel welcome or like we belong. And then the community kind of reinforces that because you don't see anyone else like you there, and so you're not welcome. So it goes around in a circle, and there's a real exclusion loop there, and that's what we're really trying to change with sector change. So with This Girl Can, we're really focused now on changing that to an inclusion loop and thinking about how can a community get better at supporting the women and girls in its specific part of specific community to get active. What do we need from society? What societal change do we need? And a huge part of that is representation of women and girls, so much broader representation than you would traditionally see, or women of all shapes, sizes, backgrounds, abilities, getting active in ways that work for them. And then by encouraging women to give a go and try it for themselves so that they feel included and they become part of an inclusive community. And so that vicious circle becomes a virtuous one. We do that in all our campaigns, so as well as the sort of the big creative that you see externally, we have loads and loads of resources and insights and guidance and webinars and conferences where we work with the sector to share our insights, share our guidance, discuss with them what the challenge is and what the problems are. This is from We're Undefeatable. I don't think this is going to work either. This is the We're Undefeatable ad, which is also great, and we'll send you the link afterwards. Sorry, I didn't have hard copies of those, and that really brings that to life. And then sometimes, as well as working collaboratively with the sector, we will identify maybe a gap in the market or a market failure or somewhere where we think that we could actually do a direct intervention and create the opportunity themselves. Studio U is a good example of that, and that's where we knew that for girls at school who don't like team sports, don't like competitive sports, I think Phil has talked about this, maybe haven't had the best PE experience. Obviously, we want them to love competitive and team sports. I hate them. I believe that's because I had a terrible experience at school, and if you throw a netball at me now, I will run away because it was so bad for me at school, and it's quite a lot of years later, a long time since I was at school, but I still remember. So it's really important, actually, that children have a really positive experience at school because it stays with you throughout your life. It's a visceral feeling. So alongside obviously wanting to improve the way competitive team sports are played at school, we also wanted to create opportunities for girls to be active in ways that might meet what they want at that particular time in their lives or for whatever reason anyway. So studio use a set of online resources. We've partnered with Nike on some of it as well now, which is Pilates, dance, yoga, fitness classes. So it's online videos that teachers can use. So as well as doing all their other activities, they can show that for girls as well. It's not either or. It should always be yes and. But the more opportunities we can give girls to try all sorts of different things, the more chance they will find a falling for the thing that really absolutely gets them active. So that sort of system change, authenticity is at the heart of all our campaigns. These are some of the women who featured in the latest ad, as I showed yesterday. We like the way you move. We street cast all our women who feature, and in fact all our campaigns actually, it's real people doing what they normally do, playing the sport or the activity they normally do. Normally, in fact, this is Amanda actually in her garden where we filmed her, and she uses kickboxing to help her get rid of stress. I think she's a single mother, full-time legal job as well. A lot going on, being able to do kickboxing and things in her garden at home. Amy goes walking up in the northwest of England, the Lake District, beautiful part of the country, but I am from there, so I am highly biased. Nearly as beautiful as Oldberg, but not quite. Don't tell my family I said that, won't be allowed home. Nagwa, who lives in Birmingham, and she uses her outdoor gym. And she wants to do it, so she wants to get stronger so she can lift her grandchildren and stay active with them. She's got the most beautiful smile. And it's a really lovely image because often you think of those outdoor gyms as being where kids hang out and youth, and it can be a bit intimidating, but she goes there every day. She's wearing her headdress and she just takes part authentically as herself. And Wendy, who wasn't allowed to play football growing up because she's in the 60s and girls weren't allowed to. Obviously, they knew we were going to be better than them, so they had to hold us back as long as possible, I think, Phil. So she started walking football at the age of 59, and she's used it. During the lockdown, she lost her partner and her father, and she found her walking football community was the community that really got her through. And one of the things I love about talking to all our women, and actually all the We Are Undefeatable crew as well, is when they start talking about the role that sport, physical activity, movement has played in their life. They start talking about that, but then they talk about the friends they met, their coach they had, the amazing trip. Wendy and her team now go watch the Lionesses play, and they go to their local WSL side as well, and everything else that it's brought into their life. And I think it really reminds me that the thing I really love about sport, physical activity, is it's about people. It's just about people at the end of the day when it works properly. So authenticity is really, really important. And this next slide shows why. This is not one of our images. This is from an ad that was out there before we launched the first This Girl Can campaign, actually. Very perfected, very stylized, very not what physical activity looks like for most of us. I do not look like that when I try and do sit-ups at any stage in my life. I can't keep makeup on walking down the street, let alone while I'm getting hot and sweaty. It's really off-putting. This says to people like me, well, it's not really for you. And if something's not for you, you just opt out of it and you actually stop seeing it. What we have tried to do is be far more authentic. So that doesn't feel like exercise activity to me. Oops, gone too far. Let me go back. I don't know if I can go back. How do I go back? Yeah, this does. This is Sam, who was in our first ever campaign, and we found her at Parkrun. And she's just in her third Parkrun, I think. And I can smell that wet green. That is so England to me. And the mud and the leaves and the slipperiness and that coldness. And it just feels, and that makes me want to go running because I can imagine how that feels. And it's just wonderful. The other image, which I haven't got here, that would always be shown back in 2012 and 2013, was the incredible Jess Ennis, who won heptathlon gold at London 2012. And she's incredibly inspiring. As a woman, for me, she's an incredibly inspiring role model. She doesn't inspire me to run because we have very different motivations and results when we do, but this does. And the slogans that we used as well, so I jiggle, therefore I am. That came of what Sam said to us when we interviewed her, when we talked to our women, and that's where the lines that we've used came from, is when they talked about it, the lines would come out of that, and she loved the fact that she was just a normal body, her words, not mine, just running, and yeah, bits moved and bits wobbled, and she had cellulite, and it didn't matter, and she loved that she was being a role model for her daughter by just putting it out there. I have to say, though, it is incredibly brave, because it's one thing saying that, then seeing an image like this, pretty much this size, in your own hometown, which you're walking past every day, still takes some guts and doing. This is another one of my favourites from the fourth campaign. This is from Mia Gunn. This is Mina, who was born with I've forgotten the name of the condition, but quite profound disabilities. And that idea that a swimmer's body is just a body that gets in the water and swims, it doesn't matter, and it's nobody else's business what it looks like. And her face, you would have seen her in the ad at the beginning, her joy when she's going into the water and that chance to feel free and to feel herself and to actually just inhabit there is absolutely infectious. If you really focus on the insight and understanding your audience and get the authenticity right, then, and I should do a trigger warning or a content warning for this next slide, depending how you feel about feet. But if you get all of that right, then you eventually get a brand on someone's foot that got sent to me. I don't really like feet, so I can't look at this. Also annoys me because I run brands and it's not the right colour or font. But if you really connect with people authentically, then you absolutely become part of their lives. And I've had so many women over the years come up and talk to me about how This Girl Can has helped them get back out for their run or go down to the gym or get through a difficult part of their lives because they've just internalised that message. And that is what we're trying to do, because that's the bit where we don't have to do it anymore. They're doing it for themselves. And similarly with We're Undefeatable as well, I think it has that emotional connection once it talks to the audience. I'm so sorry, I've managed to get through all of this without mentioning Legos. It's a really annoying cliche when people come to Denmark, but I think with all of this system change and using campaigns for system change, it is like the pile of Lego that I had growing up. So not one of these fancy, incredibly complicated sets that I would get the instructions wrong for, but just that pile in the middle to pick up and start trying to make things and make again until you get what you're trying to imagine in your head. So with insight-led campaigns that really cut through, which is what we've done, bringing in partners and involving them in that process as well and not telling them what to do, creating new voices in your spaces, making sure you're relevant to your audiences, working with communities to shape the work and giving the campaigns and the problems and the challenges that it raises visibility that drives policy change. There's so much more behind all that, but it is getting late. But I thought I'd finish with the campaign that started us all off with this work at Sport England, or the ad, if it works. Yes.
Let's go! Hit me. Hit me. Hit me. Mississippi putting it down. I'm the hottest round. And if you want me, y'all can stop me now. Is you with me now? The biggie bounce. I know you think the way I talk. Spit my style. Get your freak on. 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 People, here I come. Now sweat me when I'm done. Now people gather round. Now people jump around. Get your freak on. Get your freak on.
I'm knackered.
Thank you for listening and staying to the end.
Thank you so much for the presentation, Phil and Kate. Maybe we have some questions. Yeah, we got one down there. Yeah.
Hello, and thank you so much for an inspiring and also very brave campaign and perspective on women's sports and sports in all. I have two questions. One is easy. Do you pay your participants?
Yes, we do. Yeah, absolutely. And we have full model release contracts, even though they're not models, but yeah, we pay them completely.
And you say they are in their own environment. What about their teammates who are also represented?
So there'll be different, depending on the level at which you take part in the campaign. So our hero women will get a certain fee, and then if other women included, they get paid as well, and they have to approve it and sign it off as well. So we make sure, A, that we're not asking anyone to share their own experiences or give away the rights of the images for free, because that doesn't feel right, but also that respects their teammates as well.
Okay.
They're relatively modest amounts, I have to say. It's not something that some...
Because we also... I'm from the Danish Handball Federation. And I work with the children and...
Yes, and it gets
we also use real models for our pictures, but we don't pay them, so we can't ask them to do such private things actually that you show here.
Yes.
I think it's very private. Also sweating, mascara running, everything is very private.
Very personal.
Very obvious here. So that's very nice.
I feel quite sorry sometimes for the women who took part, because they'd agreed to take part when we went up to them in leisure centres or whatever, and they come along to a TV ad and we made them work really hard. So the sweat is all real. There's no one there with a water bottle. We worked them really hard. But the casting of this is so important, of finding the women and girls who want to take part and are confident enough to be able to do it, but aren't doing it because they think they're going to become the next... I was going to say Kim Kardashian, but influencer or wannabe or whatever, and finding those. And I think that finding those stories, and then the director who worked with them to get those, they are still performances, even if it's what they normally do, to get that out of them, it's really important. But yeah, absolutely, I'm glad you picked up on that.
And last question, do you have initiatives underneath that support more participation, or is it only campaigns?
No, absolutely, yes, we do. So there's very specific activations like the Studio U I mentioned, but we also work locally with our local authorities or municipalities where they will create opportunities for women and girls to be active and then use assets from the campaign to support it. And we're doing some work in places ourselves, again with those organisations, to look at how we can learn,
So one of the things we got wrong in the early days of This Girl Can was we didn't speak to people like you in the Handball Federation or in England in cricket or rugby or football. And we launched a campaign. It was a major success. It generated a lot of demand. Loads of women said, "Ooh, this is inspiring. I want to do something." And then when they showed up at their local club, this was a very different experience. It didn't look or feel like this. And that's a mistake that we made. We didn't involve the governing bodies of sport or the clubs. Now we do. And now they're ready. When those women turn up, what they hopefully receive feels and sounds a bit more like this. Yeah.
Thank you. And then I think we have a question in the app.
We actually have two. One of them is it difficult for Sport England to push through projects and various agendas politically in England, for example, when it comes to facilities?
Yes, is the simple answer. We have a never-ending program of refurbishment and repair and replacement of facilities. Because, of course, lots of our facilities were created and built maybe 50 years ago, and they all come to the end of their life, and we need to keep investing and refurbishing. Every time an individual sports facility needs to be replaced or improved, we have to make the case again to the local authority, the municipality, to do it. I saw an interesting thing on Monday. Morten and colleagues took us on the bus tour around Aalborg, and in the east of Aalborg we saw the health facility. That is a excellent community facility where you have a health practice and something for jobs and the community, and a gym where people go to get their exercise. And as I understand it, it's changed the life of a lot of people in the east of Aalborg. And that's a kind of model that we are doing more and more now in England, what we would call the co-location of facilities. So we don't expect the women to come to sport. We take the sport to the women or the rest of the community. It's a great facility, and I'm going to tell my team all about it when we get home.
One more.
How large is Sport England? How many employees does it have, and is it growing?
We've got 330 employees at the moment, and no, it is not growing, but it is staying the same. This is about the right number that the government, frankly, the government says, we think you need this many people. And of course, it's the number that matches our budget. When you think about 330 people, and as I mentioned, in England, we have 60 million citizens. This is not enough people to spread around the country. So we work with partners. We work with national governing bodies. We work with municipalities. We work with health charities. We work with anyone who can help us to reach the end user, the citizen that is in Kate's videos or all of the other people around the country, because we can't do it ourselves. We can only achieve the numbers that I showed you in the chart because of the hard work of thousands of organizations around the country.
Yeah. Do we have more? Any questions?
I might have a question for Kate.
Yeah.
How do you brand yourself to different age groups?
Sorry, can you say that again?
How do you brand yourself to different age groups?
Okay, so This Girl Can actually covers age groups from the age of 14 up to 60, 70. I was going to say the end. That sounds a little bit grim. 14 and upwards now. And actually, when we branded it and we came up with the name This Girl Can, girl was the one word that connected all those age groups together. And it might mean different things. Obviously, literally, technically girls under 18. But the way women would talk about themselves in England, typically we will call ourselves, some of us, girls' night out or whatever. So it was the word that brought them all to it. That said, within that, things like Studio U that I talked about, where it's very specifically targeting teenagers, we did work with an agency to come up with something that would more specifically resonate with teenage girls. So we just have This Girl Can for women and girls, and then We're Undefeatable. So it's more around, and then with We're Undefeatable, it's more around the conditions at the moment. What we don't do massively is talk about Sport England, because that doesn't, for the audiences we're trying to reach, sport, that might actually put them off, which sounds like a terrible thing for me to say. So that is kept quite, it's there, and we talk about it, and it's not that we don't want them to know it's Sport England, but we want them to see that it's about them, not that it's about an organisation telling them what to do.
Morten?
Yes, about how you're creating the campaigns. Who's taking part in that? Who will be deciding we'll make it like this? And do you have your own staff to do this, or is it someone outside? Is it in-house?
Can I say one thing before you answer the question?
Yes.
Are you familiar with the phrase, success has many fathers? Yes. So in the case of This Girl Can, success has many mothers. So there are quite a few women in England who would claim to be the, what's the word? The architect. The architect of This Girl Can. The truth of that is, you are looking at one of the real architects of This Girl Can, and another person who was our previous chief executive, who are due all the credit for the success of that campaign. What about the others?
Thank you, Phil. Yes, Jenny Price, our chief exec, went to launch it. It was her vision and her steel, really, that pushed it through, because it took quite a lot. It was a very big departure for an organisation like us to do this. And then I've been lucky enough to be involved from the very beginning of it. And there have been a number of others along the way who stayed for some time. I seem to be the survivor. I don't know what I do to them. They go. But we've also worked with our incredible insight team. We have an amazing insight team at Sport England, which is where actually the data for this came from in the first place. And they're really good at making sure that what we do is grounded in our women. And in those research, and then external agencies as well. So a creative agency helped us take all that insight and the stack of it and come up with the thread and those emotional barriers we found that were going through it, and then bring it to life through the films that you see. So there's a small campaigns team, I think it's small, of about eight people. We work with about 3 agencies: creative, media, PR, and then also with our comms colleagues, so press, PR, external affairs, public relations, parliamentary relations as well. And then, but actually that's just to produce the campaign. To then embed it within the work of Sport England and to connect it to those initiatives, it needed to be an organisation-wide initiative. And that's another mistake we made at the beginning. It was seen too much as something that the campaign team did over here and wasn't connected to the rest of the organisation. And that's a big thing that I would change if I could go back.
We had some similar project that called Bevægelse for livet for about 3 years ago. It ended or something like that. But It was also marketing and initiatives locally, and a lot of the work locally was about reforming the sport in itself and doing something different than competition, and doing a very different kind of sport than you are usually doing. One example, handball on smaller courts, and softballs instead of the hard one, and all the traditionalists were very much against it, but it invited new people into the sport, and it worked. How much work is there to include these kinds of women and make them feel welcome in the initiatives? How much work do you do with competition, body image, capability of participating and not competing? Yeah, all the cultural changes that you have to make in the sport, not to be competitive, but to be participative.
Yeah. And that's a large part of what you do as well, Phil, I think. If you think it's not just women and girls, I think there's so many people, there's people who want to be competitive, absolutely fantastic. There's a lot of people who don't. And I think if you look at some of the other initiatives as well, like Play Their Way, coaches being able to coach competitively, but also the fun. And fun, surprise, is the biggest indicator for kids going back, is if they're having fun doing it. So there's always more work to be done, I think. And I think trying to get, as you say, the traditionalists away from that idea, well, if it's not like I used to do it, and if it's not like this, then it doesn't really count. Or for you to do it a different way means I have to stop mine. It's not. Netball actually has done some really good work with this, with their Back to Netball initiative, which actually is before This Girl Can, so I can't take any credit for that. But that was around getting women who used to play at school maybe into non-competitive, just playing for fun. It didn't have to be leagues, it didn't have to be serious. And they did some really lovely work actually about how this is a whole different thing, but they would look for the women who were turning up and sat in their cars and nervous to get out and go and welcome them in. Netball has still got a hugely competitive, frankly terrifying if you ask me, competitive side as well. It's not either or, and I think trying to get the traditionalists to see that, but I think we see that across a lot of sports. We see it with cricket, with all the different versions of cricket a lot, don't we? The traditionalist cricket people, this is probably not a sport that is going to track. I've suddenly realised, Kate, now your audience don't like it, but the different versions, you know, especially children growing up these days want different things, and we need to be able to respond to that, or the traditional sports will die out.
I've worked in sport my whole career, and I love it. And there is lots to like, but the resistance to change is terrible. It is truly terrible. And it's very often, I'm sorry to say, men of a certain age who feel that sport needs to look and behave a certain way because it's how they did sport at school. And it's usually very formal, very competitive, very driven by elite performance or winning. And that works for a small audience. It worked for me, but I've learned that I'm the freak, right? This is not how most of the population thinks and feels about sport. And Kate's helped me to learn that with the campaigns that she's done. And because I've now learned that, I've become a zealot that sport must change. It must change for children, where it's got to be fun. It must change for the women who this campaign represents, where it's got to be engaging and about belonging, and people have to feel like it's for them. Don't change the women, change the sport.
How many, you say you have 30 million for the campaign, and how much do you use for the initiatives underneath?
So on the campaign itself, over 11 years, it's been 30 million. So that's on the creative, all the work that goes into that, and into the paid media, which is, I appreciate, a lot of money. That's over 11 years. There's then additional funding that will either go through the work that we're doing anyway, but then will be informed and connect to it, or where we have invested. Off the top of my head, I don't know how much that is. It will be less than that. It would be hard to cut, actually, because it also affects and influences the work that we'd be funding anyway, but maybe changes the way it is. Probably hard to directly answer that.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
So there's no earmarked funds that goes into the initiatives locally?
There has been at times, so we've worked through what we call, through the major cities, core cities are called, but the major cities where we've given them pots of money to be able to activate locally. We're doing some, there will be funding available through the 5 places where we're working very intensively. And there's also an open fund that Sport England runs called the Movement Fund, which people can apply to, but we haven't recently anyway had an earmarked fund where you can specifically support that.
Are they like forced to implement the ideas that you present in this campaign and the other campaigns that you have presented?
So I would say that we are stubborn on the vision and flexible on the details. So to give an example, if you are a person who delivers sport in Manchester, which is where I'm from originally, if your messages and your images come from London, that's not going to work. Because there are regional differences. It must be the same here in Denmark. But the rest of the country is very suspicious of the capital city and vice versa, for reasons that we could all debate. But if you want to develop sport in Manchester or in Liverpool or anywhere else, it's got to feel local. It's got to look and feel and smell, and people can smell it. It's got to feel like this is us. This is for us, it's by us, it's about us. And so Kate has worked very hard with the cities and regions to make a single branded This Girl Can. It's a national campaign, but it's got to feel like it belongs to the locality.
And also the guidance we share, there's very often, and this is not all of it, but small changes that maybe a facility can make that make it more inclusive, like swimming pools having blinds that they can put. A lot of our swimming pools will have big, lovely, lovely, lovely open windows that let the light flood in, which is great, unless you're somebody who needs a bit more privacy than that. So having blinds that they can pull down at certain times to create and support women-only sessions, for example. It's not a hugely expensive innovation, but it can make a big difference to a group that might otherwise feel excluded. And sometimes it can be around the welcome that you get when you walk through, if it's a leisure centre again, the reception door. So there are some smaller changes that can be made, as well as some of those bigger ones of new formats, new ways of doing it, thinking about the time and place that you do it, thinking about the kit. And I know Danish handball did a lot on white shorts, didn't you? Yeah, which was fantastic and ridiculous that we needed to do that, or that you needed to do it in this day and age, and that it's a classic example of where the resistance is. Sorry, well, not Phil. But absolutely, and it's ridiculous that it was really in the last 3 or 4 years that we've been able to actually talk about white shorts being an issue for girls' participation. There's so many small changes that can add up to something big, as well as things that might need more funding as well.
So you create change in the initiative through education or of coaches and leaders and volunteers?
Yeah, that's part of it. And I think the fact that we amplify the voices of the women and girls that we're talking to as well, so that we are speaking on their behalf. And actually, you know, I'm the one stood on the stage now, but it's really their voices that we hear. And it's much harder for the traditionalists to argue with the lived experiences of normal everyday people than it is, they'll argue with me, or they'll enjoy arguing with me. But if it's normal everyday people, they don't much.
This is really important.
Yeah.
So Sport England is a national government organisation. And again, people are suspicious or sceptical of national government organisations. So as Kate says, we don't say, this is what Sport England thinks sport for women should be like. Listen to the women, right? They're not models, they're not actors. These are real people living real lives with real problems and challenges and reasons why they do and don't do sport. Listen to them. We're just telling you what they're saying. And that's been the success of This Girl Can. It's authentic.
I think.
Thank you so much. That was a really interesting discussion. So much more. I've got to get your details. I'd love to find out more.
But thank you so much for your questions. I think that's it. So will you please give a big hand for Kate and Phil? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Denmark.
Thank you. It's been what a wonderful few days.